Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasona Jamuna Tiyavanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjanaya Jamuna Tiyavanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiyavanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Jamuna Tiyavanachari. Yamuna Tiyavanachari. Yamuna Tiyavanachari. Yamuna Tiyavanachari. Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravicharacharya Sthoru Shishya Mata's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravicharacharya Sthoru Shishya Mata's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Anandikoti Vaishnava Vrind ki, Naam Acharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki, Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki, Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan ki, Vrindavan Navadip Dham ki, Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki, Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi ki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. So, I'm going to be speaking from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 6, text number 46. Let's see, 6. Have you all got that verse there? Let's see the verse. Navai satam tva charanar pitatmanam Navai satam tva charanar pitatmanam Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava Bhutani chatmanya apritak didriksatam Bhutani chatmanya apritak didriksatam Prayena roso abhibhavet yatapasum Prayena roso abhibhavet yatapasum Navai satam tva charanar pitatmanam Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava Bhutani chatmanya apritak didriksatam Prayena roso abhibhavet yatapasum Navai satam tva charanar pitatmanam Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava Bhutani chatmanya pritak didriksatam Prayena roso abhibhavet yatapasum Navai satam tva charanar pitatmanam Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava Bhutani chatmanya pritak didriksatam Prayena roso abhibavet yata pasu. Navai satam tva charanarpitatmanam. Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava. Bhutani chatmanya pritagdidriksatam. Prayena roso abhibavet yata pasu. Navai satam tva charanarpitatmanam. Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava. Bhutani chatmanya pritagdidriksatam. Prayena roso abhibavat yatha pasum. Pushpavili. Navai satam tva charanarpitatmanam. Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava. Bhutani chatmanya pritagdidriksatam. Prayena roso abhivatyata pasum. Ujjwala, you'll try. Navai satam tva charanarpitatmanam. Bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava. Bhutani chatmanya pritagdidriksatam. Prayena roso abhibavet yata pasum. So we'll do the word for word. Na, not. Vai, but. Satam, of the devotees. Tvacharna arpita atmanam, of those who are completely surrendered at your lotus feet. Bhuteshu, among living entities. Sarveshu, all varieties. Abhipasyatam, perfectly seeing. Tava, your. Bhutani, living entities. Cha, and. Atmani, in the Supreme. Apritak, non-different. Didriksatam, those who see like that. Prayena, almost always. Rosa, anger. Abhibhavet, takes place. Yata, exactly like. Pasum, the animals. Translation. My dear Lord, devotees who have fully dedicated their lives unto your lotus feet certainly observe your presence as Paramatma in each and every being. And as such, they do not differentiate between one living being and another. Such persons treat all living entities equally. They never become overwhelmed by anger like animals who can see nothing without differentiation. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes angry or kills a demon, materially this may appear unfavorable, but spiritually it is a blissful blessing upon him. Therefore, pure devotees do not make any distinction between the Lord's anger and His blessings. They see both with reference to the Lord's behavior with others and themselves. A devotee does not find fault with the behavior of the Lord in any circumstances. The translation again. My dear Lord, devotees who have fully dedicated their lives unto your lotus feet certainly observe your presence as Paramatma in each and every being, and as such they do not differentiate between one living being and another. Such persons treat all living entities equally. They never become overwhelmed by anger like animals who can see nothing without differentiation. So it's a short purport and a beautiful text. And I was told that I had to give class last night, and I was looking at this text. It was just as a short purport, but so much can be said. Navai satam tva charanar pitatmanam bhuteshu sarveshu abhipasyatam tava bhutani chatmanya pritak didrik satam prayena roso abhibhavet yata pasum. And so much can be said on the verse itself and the purport. Satam, the actual word for word satam, yes, satam means of the devotees, but satam also means of the truthful. Or satam means pure devotees who have really no other desire to serve the Lord. So only in the association of such devotees are the transcendental glories of the Lord properly discussed. Because the Lord's glories or topics are full of spiritual significance. And when one hears it in the association of devotees, that he advances so much in devotional life. If you hear in the association of pure devotees, like Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee of the Lord from his very birth, and Sukadev Goswami, so both were on the same level, because one may appear to be as the king, and he was accustomed to like royal facilities, as Prabhupada puts in one of his purport. Whereas Sukadev Goswami was a renouncer of the world, because he didn't even have a cloth on his body. He was completely naked whilst he was, speaking. But they both unalloyed pure devotees of the Lord. So when you come in contact with devotees or pure devotees, then we should take advantage of their association, and our topics should be based, or our topics, our discussion should be centered around the glories of Krishna. That is Bhakti Yoga. Like you meet a person, how are you, what you're doing, you find out about their different, in general, like more like a social talk. That's not recommended. Because the whole thing should be centered around Lord Krishna. And when you meet a devotee or any devotee, not necessarily, the definition, what's your definition of a pure devotee? One who surrendered to Krishna 10%. Then all the people in the room here seated, are they pure devotees? Huh? Really or not? I'm asking, is it? So they are pure, all seated in the room are pure devotees. Because a pure devotee is somebody who's following the regulative principles and following the instruction of the spiritual master is considered a pure devotee. So that's one definition. But 10% where somebody is on the highest level, we could discuss that in the end. And whether, on the highest level, then we regard that person as a pure devotee. So, like the Supreme Lord is always inclined toward his devotee. He's always thinking of his devotee's well-being. Now here the verse is talking about the Paramatma feature. It says, "My dear Lord, devotees who have fully dedicated their life unto your lotus feet certainly observe your presence as Paramatma in each and every living being." Do we see it like that? That we see a person and then we remember that Krishna is seated in his heart? If you see it like that, then you may not blaspheme, you may, you'll be very conscious. You think, well, Krishna is in his heart. And Krishna is hearing and he's seeing what you're saying. Or he's hearing what you're saying and he's seeing you. So we may not do that. But therefore we have to become so conscious that and have that, at least that theoretical understanding that the Paramatma feature is in everybody's heart. And so, this is not partiality when Krishna favors his devotee. And that verse from the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Samaham Sarve Bhutesu. Because just like, and Prabhupada gives a very nice example of how, like a father may have many children, but he may have specific affection for one child. It's true. Because the person who's most subservient and surrendered to him, then he may be more inclined to have more affection for him. Although he is equal in that sense. Because that text in itself, the text itself, that verse, Samu Sarve Bhutesu, the first part of it deals with the Paramatma feature of the Lord. And the second part of that text deals with where Krishna's partiality with the Bhagavan feature. And the partiality comes there in the second part of that text. So in Paramatma feature, it's overseeing, it's kind of neutral, it's a referee. Like a referee, meaning that he can just oversees and see everything as justice in everything. But the Bhagavan feature of Krishna, that deals with affection and love, and he may be more inclined to his devotee. So it's there, that's Krishna. Just like, that verse 10:10 of Bhagavad Gita, what is it? Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatim priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupi yantite. To those who constantly devoted to serve me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So, the Lord is not far from the devotee. He is always in the heart of the devotee. But the devotee can only realize the Lord's presence if he's connected and he takes the instruction from the Lord. Therefore, we can say there is no chance of a devotee being in error, nor is there any partiality on the part of his pure devotees. It may look like a fault that, how can you be partial? But Krishna is both, impartial and partial. That makes him God. He's everything. So the association of Shri Radha Raghunath ki, that verse in the Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto, Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti hirkana rasayana katha tajosanadasu api vargavatmani shadaratir bhaktir anukramisyati. So in the association of pure devotees, the discussion and the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. But this is the important part. By cultivating such knowledge, one becomes advanced on the path of liberation. This is what the verse is talking about. And therefore he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. So it's that when you're getting freed from all those unwanted desires, which we'll discuss in the end, and then how you come fixed. Now fixed is in the level of steadiness or nishtha. And then real devotion, when you get tej, ruchi, and the other higher levels of devotional service begin. And like the cowherd boys, and how do you get this? Just like the cowherd boys in the Bhagavatam, it's explained that how the cowherd boys, they have accumulated pious activities over many lifetimes. Itam satam brahmasukana bhutaya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena mayasitam naradarakena sakam vijaru krita punya punja. So over many lifetimes you get this pious activities that you can associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the association of devotees is what helps one to advance in Krishna consciousness and then differentiate between one living being and another. It doesn't mean, and we'll discuss that, it doesn't mean that we don't differentiate. Because here it is saying to see, in the purport is saying, to see all living beings equally. So the Paramatma feature, and we discussed earlier on, there's one, in one purport, in the 7th canto, I'll just read the verse itself. My Lord Nishingadev, please therefore cease your anger now that my father, the great demon Hiranyakashipu, has been killed. Since even saintly persons take pleasure in the killing of a scorpion or a snake, all the worlds have achieved great satisfaction because of the death of this demon. Now they are confident of their happiness, and they will always remember your auspicious incarnation of Nishingadev in order to be free from fear. So this is a verse spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. So even a saintly person, he takes pleasure. Now you'd say we have to see every living entity equally. So why is he praying that even saintly person, they take pleasure when the snake and a scorpion is killed? Now Hiranyakashipu is compared here to a snake. And And it's okay if you see a snake and you kill it, because you elevate him to the next life. He may take a higher birth. But really, a saintly person doesn't mean that he desires killing. And the Lord was angry. That's what it says here. One of the things, they see both. A devotee does not find fault with the behavior of the Lord in any circumstances. Therefore, pure devotees do not make any distinction between the Lord's anger and His blessings. So the killing, that's how we have to look at it, that Hiranyakashipu was killed. He doesn't see, the pure devotee doesn't make any distinction. So here we see Prahlad Maharaj is not making any distinction, but is, they take pleasure when a snake or a scorpion is killed. Now, just like, Srila Prabhupada, there was Mr. Nair who gave Prabhupada a hard time in the building of the temple in Juhu. And then Mr. Nair had passed away, had left his body in a heart attack. And then the devotees stood thinking, well, he'll become a snake. What has he become? And then they asked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, he'll take birth as a human being. Although he had caused so much pain, because Krishna will look at that, he came to give this land, to build a temple. You'll see it from that perspective. So when we're reading these texts, in the Bhagavatam, it's not in all cases that we see everything equally. We may say it a little differently. So just bear that in mind. And Prahlad, my Lord, you are never conquered by anyone. I am certainly not afraid of your ferocious mouth and tongue, your eyes bright like the sun, on your frowning eyebrows. I do not fear your sharp pinching teeth, your garland of intestines, your mane soaked with blood, or your high wedge-like ears, nor do I fear your tumultuous roaring, which makes elephants flee to distant places, or your nails, which are meant to kill enemies. Because such a fearful appearance was not disturbing for Prahlad Maharaj. And Prabhupada writes in his purport, he gives some nice points. He says, the lion is very fearsome for other animals, but to its cubs, it's not at all afraid of the lion. And he gives the example of the water of the sea is certainly dreadful for the living entities on the land. But within the sea, even a small fish is unafraid. Because the small fish has taken shelter. Why? Because the small fish has taken shelter of the big ocean. And the small fish can swim in the opposite current. So therefore, although the Lord sometimes assumed like this fierce appearance to kill like the Duskritis, the non-devotees, but still we have to see it in its proper perspective, and it sometimes the situation may be ghastly, but it's the blessing of the Lord. So it may be difficult to see it like that. Because the devotee always sees or takes pleasure in worshipping the Lord and glorifying the Lord in any form, either pleasing or fierce. So then then there's a nice in the seventh, I think it's in the seventh canto. It talks about, see, like a demon is envious, and envious people should be avoided. A devotee avoid envious people. And Prabhupada writes a very beautiful purport in which he talks about envy, that everyone should be friendly in the service of the Lord. And everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of his own service. Which is not an easy thing to do, even we practicing Krishna consciousness for a very long time. It's very difficult. Because this is a Vaishnava way of thinking, the Vaikuntha way of thinking. But there is competition, but there is no enmity between the servants, even in the Vaikuntha planets. So we should try not to be envious. And envy talks about anger also, yeah. Or we treat all persons equally. I don't know, do we do that? It's a little difficult, right? Equally. But there was an interesting discussion on seeing, because sometimes we quote the verse of Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gaiva Hashtani Suni Chaiva Swapakacha Pandita Sama Darshinaha. That verse. You know, the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahmana, a cow and an elephant, a dog and a dog eater. So you see equally. And one time Prabhupada, now remember, Prabhupada was a preacher, but at the same time, he was an Uttama Adhikar, he was a topmost devotee. So there was in 1971, in January 1971, there was a room conversation with Srila Prabhupada and some guests. And they were talking about, they raised this point about seeing equally or seeing the Paramatma in every living entity. And that's what our verse is about today. Feeling the presence of the Paramatma. So they, because Prabhupada, he criticized people's presentation if they were not according to what Lord Krishna said. And they raised that you should see with equal vision. Particularly dealing with this verse, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gaiva Hashtani. And then Prabhupada says he was not on that platform. Because here the verse says you have to see equally. But he was saying he was not on that platform because there are three modes of material nature. There's people on Sattva-gun, Rajagun and Tamagun. So the people are different in terms of the body. So, Prabhupada was raising that. And he was saying that, you're not on that Suddha Sattva stage yet, on the pure stage. You're still under the modes. But they challenged, the challenge was still on that you have to see everybody equally. And Prabhupada said, well, I'm not on that standard. I'm not on that standard. Because when you see somebody equally, meaning that you see his pious and impious activities the same. Now a dog has a body because of his impious activities. And the Brahmana has a body of a Brahmana because of his pious activities. So do you see it the same? So no. So it's very important to know that it's not the same. And as a preacher, we make distinction. So it's like taking sinful activities and pious activities to be the same. So we don't do that. But there was quite a heated discussion, and it's a long discussion. You can read it in the conversation in the room conversation. So Prabhupada was a preacher, and a preacher makes distinctions. So on the Uttama Adhikari platform, on that highest level, he has to come down to the Madhyam level to preach, because on the Uttama Adhikari platform, he's seeing everything equal. So there's no distinctions. But to preach, you have to come to the lower level. Because on that level, he's seeing everything equal. He's seeing sinful and pious activities the same. He's not, but he comes to the lower platform. Not that it makes him lower. He still remains on that platform, but he sees like that. So understand, that doesn't make sense? Make sense? Yeah. So that's the Paramatma feature in the heart. So then, finally, there were many guests. There were actually 6 guests. But one of the guests said, that every acharya has made a contribution. What is your contribution? And Prabhupada said, no, my contribution is only I repeated what the previous acharyas or the previous teachers said. And then Prabhupada raised, he said, his Sama Darshana was that why only Hindus shall know about Krishna? The whole world should know about Krishna. But if you Hindus refuse to know, what can I do? So yes, Srila Prabhupada answered the challenge because he saw everybody equally. In that sense, because he went and gave out Krishna consciousness without any discrimination. That makes sense, right? So that is Pandita Samadarshina, seeing with equal vision. So, there's so many texts dealing with the Paramatma feature and how to, how it's seated in your heart, and from him come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So yes, even the forgetfulness come from the Lord. Just like even the pure devotee can forget. I was telling that to her the other day. Can forget. But that is coming from the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada, during the struggle of the Juhu land, there was one person, Mr. Diwanji, who was the lawyer, but he was in Kavutsu, the other side, of Mr. Nayar's side, the opposition. And Srila Prabhupada said he couldn't, I thought he was our friend. I couldn't really understand, how could he be against us? And then, then Prabhupada says, well, Krishna may not wanted me to know. So it comes to that verse. What is the verse? 15:15. Sarvasya cha amhidi sana vishtu matasmitir jnanam apanam cha. Vedaya shar sarvaham eva vedyo vedanta krid vedavid eva chaham. So I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes that remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So when a pure devotee forgets somebody on a high platform, remember that's coming from Krishna. So we have 10 minutes more. So that maybe we can go through some of the verses that brings us to that level. How do we come to this surrendering completely to the lotus feet of the Lord? Fully dedicated life unto your lotus feet of the Lord. How do we come to that platform? And there's verses in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto when I joined the movement. I started hearing the first canto. It just started here at the temple. And those verses really are important. And Yeah. From the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-16. Shushushrusho saradanasya Vasudeva kataruchi. Jai Prabhu is laughing because this verse has been it's been drummed into our head. Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tita Nisevanat. O twice born sages, by serving those who are completely free from vice, great service is done. And by such service, one gains the affinity to hear the messages of Vasudeva. I remember learning this from Giriraj Maharaj. This verse at that time when they started. So this is it begins the bhakti. You'll see from 16 to right up to text 20. It's talking about how you advance in spiritual life from Shraddha, from faith to prema. And these verses, I don't know if you all probably did this in the Bhakti Sastri courses. Yes, what happens is you get the mercy of the devotee by serving him. But at the same time, by serving him, it's an interesting way how you get attachment to hearing. So it comes by serving, then you get hearing. And if your hearing is bad, then you serve, vice versa. So by serving, you gain, and you must serve somebody who's completely freed from vice. Now it's talking about a high level devotee. But then, it's not bad to serve others, but the others should not demand service. Hey, bring this. Give me that. Give me this. That's not also good. Like we say, Prabhu. Prabhu means master. You say, Master, bring that from here. So you should think that the way you should, I don't know, there's many ways of looking at it, but it's, yeah, okay, but I won't talk about that. Hearing the messages of Vasudeva, it comes by service. So gradually you get that faith. Now this text itself, Shushusha Sradananasya Vasudeva Kataruchi, is the three divisions, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha and Bhajana Kriya. This verse deals with that. Specifically deals with that. And then the next text, which is Srinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Edi Antistoi Abhadrani Vidunati Suhir Satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is Paramatma, this is in what we're talking about, the super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of a devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So at this stage, then all the unwanted abhadrani, the anarthas, comes out. So by bhajana kriya and anartha nivritti, this is the stage. This verse is dealing with that stage. Then the next verse, Nasta prayashu abhidrisu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. So we're dealing with that verse. And at this verse, what happens is there's a disappearance of obstacles also. So therefore it's still anartha nivritti and nishta. It's dealing with clearing all the obstacles and you becoming fixed. Because it talks about who is praised with transcendental song established as an irrevocable fact. So then, the 19th verse, Tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobadayas chaye cheta etar anividham stihitam sadve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance such as lust, desire and hankering disappear from the heart. Disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness and he becomes completely happy. So this is on the level of ruchi and ashakti. Because the modes of passion is gone, lust, hankering, all disappear from the heart. So he's established and he becomes happy. So he has a taste. He has attachment. There's ruchi, there's ashakti, there's attachment, there's taste and attachment. So it's very scientific, this verses. But it starts off with serving, then you get the affinity to hearing. This is how one becomes advanced and can feel the presence of the Paramatma feel the presence of the Paramatma in everybody. So this is what the verse is talking about. And then on the 20th one, Evam prasana manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. So this verse is talking about bhava, which is rati, which is strong attachment, bhava, and then prema. And on this level, one experiences ecstatic symptoms. He may, like we were dealing with, last night we were talking about Narada Muni, that he has so much love and so much, he reached this level and tears were just rolling from his eyes. He couldn't even see where the Lord was. So one comes to that platform of devotional service, bhava. So this text is dealing with bhava and prema. But in all, the hearing is the most important. Therefore we have these Bhagavatam classes. We have to hear this philosophy. So we can come to this level, this highest level of bhava and prema. We at some stage we're going to experience, we'll experience it. We will be crying. But you can test it. When Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj was talking about crying, in the Nectar of Devotion it's explained that if the tears are cold, then that's good. If you're crying, then you must know that's pure love. That's bhava. But if it's warm, then it's material. So that's the way you understand it. So these verses in the Bhagavatam are very powerful, and we have to hear the philosophy every day and slowly come to that platform of, that highest platform of bhava and prema. That is what we're trying to achieve, pure love for God. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So just to inform you that breakfast will only be ready at 9 o'clock. So we can have a little discussion. I think, Jai, you have any things to say? Can somebody get the microphone for him? Mask up. Jai, a mask.
Hare Krishna. Yeah?
It's on. Hare Krishna. The light is on there?
Yeah, very nice presentation. Thank you. I just want to clarify that Samadashana, you mentioned that you quoted that verse from Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampanna Brahma. And then you added, Prabhupada was with these preachers, and he was very upset with their and what is the idea of seeing equally? I don't know, sometimes we see externally, we will see, like those mentioned in the Brahmana, the cow, socially they are indifferent. But what is the Kamadarshana of that? We're seeing the soul and so present in all these, and that's why we respect, we shall respect like that. So, yeah, Srila Prabhupada, you mentioned how he's a Uttama, and for the sake of preaching, yes, he came to the level of Madhyam to see, to make, sometimes we have to make distinction, that's true, and avoid the envious. The envious, it's a demoniac nature. Being envious is a quality, it's one of the demoniac qualities. But somehow we've come in the material world and we endowed with these, and it's on the platform of anatta nivriti, it's very difficult because these are all very subtle. You know, on the gross platform, we can give up those things that with the senses, but when it's deeply entrenched in the consciousness, and it's very difficult. So anatta nivriti, at that stage, we have to give up somehow, get rid of these. But it's not so easy. It's not very easy. Because they've been there for like so many, they're carrying this burden of envy. That's the root cause why we're in the material world. Because of envy of the Supreme. And because we are envious of the Supreme, then naturally we will, as a matter of, we will see everyone else, also we will think we're above everybody. Every individual is thinking like that. In a conditioned state. He's seeing like that. I'm better than everyone. And when he sees somebody better than him, then it's kind of the envy is there. He doesn't want competition. He doesn't want the competition. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a good point about envy again. Yeah. Envy, there's so many definitions of envy itself also. Like amongst many good qualities, you find a fault. A verse mentions here that a devotee does not find fault with the behavior of the Lord in any circumstances, but that includes the other devotees. So amongst many good qualities, according to Baladev Vidya Bhusan, that if you find a fault, because a devotee may have many good qualities, but you latch onto the fault and you just latch onto the fault and then you magnify the fault. Like quite often, and I'm faced with this, like where many people come and complain about a devotee who just has one fault. I say, yes, he may have that fault, but then he may have other good qualities also. So let's look at the other good qualities that he has, also. Because the one quality, there's like, there's even in management, like especially if like I've been involved in management for a long time, it's not easy because you're hearing faults and complaints all the time. So, but still, we should see the good. And we should magnify the good. We should give credit where it's due. And as you give credit where it's due, then you'll become non-envious like that. But it's true, as what Jai Prabhu was saying, that we may, like because of our deep conditioning, it's very difficult for us because we're prone to see the fault. And sometimes we really don't mean it. Like we had, our good friend Lakshmi Nath. Sometimes we used to joke with him and get angry with him, and but in our heart we didn't have anything against him, like Raja Saja. Yeah, so it was for that moment. So devotees, we should also be cautious how we're dealing with them, because sometimes out of affection, because of we know each other, we may joke, or but we have to also be cautious in how we speak. We'll be very cautious, because all devotees who surrendered to Krishna, they're good people. They've come and surrendered to Krishna. There's so many millions of people out there haven't surrendered to Krishna. Yeah. So that is about envy. Anybody else want to add anything? A comment? Ranga? Give the microphone to Ranga.
Hare Krishna. So I was just thinking, you were talking about pure devotee. Hare Krishna. So once somebody asked Prabhupada, how many pure devotees do you have in your society? And Prabhupada looked at the devotees and he said, how many devotees is there in ISKCON? And they said at that time around 5,000. Then he said, we have 5,000 pure devotees. So, so a pure devotee is one who is following Srila Prabhupada, who is a pure devotee. So in that way, we look at them as pure devotees. But there are different grades of devotees we know from the scripture. The Uttama Adhikari, he doesn't make distinctions. He doesn't make distinctions between anyone. And as you were saying, when Prabhupada has to come down, he was an Uttama Adhikari and he had to come down to the Madhyam level to preach. So in that way you have to make distinctions in order to preach, otherwise you can't preach. Because you see everyone as a pure devotee. Like that. So and then Prabhupada, when he was speaking to in this room conversation, it was because of his humility. He said that he doesn't see everyone equally, because that's his humility. He's not a pure devotee because that's his humility. But we know Prabhupada is Uttama Adhikari, and he just had to come down to this Madhyam Adhikari in order to preach.
Yeah. Thank you. Any more? Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, so Prabhupada had to come down and preach to people and preach to people and degraded people, from a very low platform. Lower, they were like drunks and so many different people. But Srila Prabhupada would that was out of, as you said, he came down from the Uttama Adhikari to the Madhyam platform and preaching. But Srila Prabhupada also accepted instructions from those people also. He took, he saw that Krishna was speaking to them also. So this is somebody, so that's like what an Uttama Adhikari is. See, like we may see a drunk or something, we may not take it seriously, what he is saying us. But it's interesting that, when somebody is speaking to us, we have to what is this person is trying to tell us? Is Krishna speaking through him? What is the message that is coming through? So we have to be, vigilant and very conscious that information can come from many people. Like there was one devotee said me that how he joined the temple, a disciple of Indradumna Swami, and he was working for a company, and that company really depended on him a lot, and they really didn't want to let him go. He was finishing off, but the reason was that he met a Muslim guy, and the Muslim guy told him, this work is not for you. This is not your job. You got something else to do. So he left. He took that instruction and he left and he joined the temple. So you have to be very, I think Maharaj wants to come in, so we will conclude our. Is it okay? Because the breakfast is going to be at 9, so I think it's going to be a little later. So, but isn't anybody else has anything else to say? That we can conclude. Then Maharaj should come in. You have anything else to say, Ranga? You could say it.
I was just thinking when you spoke about this boy who joined the temple. My boss also, he told me, why don't you just go and live in the temple? So that was like an instruction, like go. So I just left.
Yeah.
And I came.
Yeah, you said before that you was hearing Prabhupada's lecture also, dogs, horse, camels, and did you say that before? Yes, I remember. You said that. That also, you was a devotee, but then still when you hear this, it gave you more. So those instruction comes, in different ways. See, like how Prabhupada solidified it. Then you're hearing from your boss, to go and live in the temple. So it's all coming through Krishna.
Yes.
From the pure devotee.
That's what I thought, that all these messages are coming.
Yeah.
So why don't do it, Otherwise, you're going to be suffering in this material world.
Then you're
So
doing
just
well.
do it.
And you're doing well. From the time you joined, you're preaching from the time I know you. How long you're a devotee now? I know you from the time you joined.
Well, that's like 20 years ago, but prior to that was like 30 years.
Yeah, I
10
remember
years.
coming to Verlam Namahata and all that. I remember,
Years prior to that.
seeing you there, yeah. I remember seeing you there.
Hare Krishna.
Shaman, yeah. So yeah, very good. Thank you. Anybody else would like to say anything? We could conclude here. Anybody else? Ujjwala, you want to say something?
Just say Hare Krishna. Well, I was in a similar situation like Ranga Devi when I was having difficulty at work, health-wise. So my boss said to me, maybe you should just go and live in the ashram and you'll have a peaceful life. So yeah, I
That's
just wanted
good.
to share that.
Yeah. Same thing, Pushpa, really? No. Because you maybe put it through so many challenges at home that like sometimes you're forced to leave, but it's all Krishna's mercy is coming like that in a different way. His blessings are coming, as his verse says, blessings. You have to look at his blessings. It's coming in a different way. But thank you so much for... First when I thought only ladies were here, then slowly Jai came. And it reminds me of, like, who's the boss? I learned from Bhatta Maharaj that if you, if you join door-to-door preaching, if you give a, if you're preaching to the husband, if the husband is convinced, he may not take that because he'll have to check with his wife. But if the wife is convinced and the husband is not, you'll sell the book. And it's true, And because it's, I was thinking, like when I was seeing only one side, whether I have to see equally or not now. I was thinking about the verse itself. And then I saw Jai came and sat down here. So it reminded me of like a king who wanted to see in his kingdom who is not controlled by a woman. So there was a stadium, and in that stadium, all the men were going on one side where they were controlled by the wives. So one person came and sat on this side, and the king got very happy. And he went to this person, he was inspired, and he said, how did you do it? How did you do it? He said, no, my wife told me to sit this side. So we'll conclude that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. We have to put that off. I didn't know what to say. Hare Krishna.